Welcome to episode 15 of the Just a Moment Ago podcast. Justin, JJ, is back with us again today. How's it going, man?
Really good, man. Really good.
That's good. Are you feeling good and everything?
Yeah. Pretty good, man.
That's good. So, I think it was like a week ago I did that short clip about, entering a treatment program and just like another one or two little clips about it. But today, let's actually discuss, that last week before entering a program and then actually entering the program, the emotions you go through, the different challenges that you are going to run into, because you're not yourself when you're going into that situation at all.
You're pretty vulnerable.
So let's go back. Like, how long did you use before you went into a program?
Gosh, it's a really good question.
Because you had a prescription, right?
Multiple.
And then at some point it flipped to an addiction,
Yep.
And then you went to a program. So, like, how long was that process?
It was about like a 7 to 8 year process.
Wow.
I noticed that I had it way worse because I could legally be a drug addict.
Right, because you had the prescription.
Exactly. It definitely, when it progressed to the point where I had I was prescribed, I believe, like 60 Vicodin a month, 60 or 90, I can't remember, 180 Tramadol.
Tramadol, too?
Yep. And at one point, it was like 5 milligram Percocets. And
all that you were getting prescribed.
Yep.
Jeez.
And eventually it led to, like, they added, like, all these antidepressants, all these, benzodiazepines, and...
So when you actually started to cross that line, it was probably pretty hard for you to actually admit it to yourself because it was all prescription stuff.
Oh, exactly.
So you're like, I'm just doing what I've been told to do.
Yep.
You know what I mean? At what point, though, did you realize that you were going to have to go to a program? Was there, like, a moment? Because for me, there was a moment that I knew I had to do it.
Well...
It wasn't like a lead up or anything. It was just that day I knew there was a time.
Well, actually, it's... When I knew that I did have a problem, the addiction in me was still telling me, well, at least I'm not, smoking crack or snorting cocaine.
Right.
But it's really funny how I had that at the beginning when it like progressed into a full-blown addiction, because it didn't take long before I actually ended up doing cocaine,
right,
and everything, and then it's a cycle.
Oh, for sure.
It's a vicious cycle.
Right. So when you got to that final week, did you make a phone call? How did you reach out, and how did you find a resource to go to a program?
It was actually I was just advised about it pretty much because of everything that was going on, and I didn't even do any research on it. I was just still following, what the next step was supposed to be.
Right.
And at that time, going like days without all those opiates and everything, I won't ever forget the day that it was like the second day is when I was like, wow, this is something I do not wish upon anybody. You go in there and they tell you that this is a full-blown treatment. You're going to get your medication every day, and this is something that has been going on. I believe, I don't remember how long they've been using methadone as...
quite a long time now.
I know, I believe like in the early 70s is, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know, as a replacement therapy,
right,
or MAT. But it was like it was almost meant to be when they sent me there, because it was like right down the street from where I was living. And this is a really good topic because wow, this brings back a lot of memories.
So just real quick, it was in methadone actually was created in 1940s. And then it was actually approved by the FDA for treatment of opioid patients in the 1970s.
Okay. So I was right then.
Yep.
And I believe, actually, the Vietnam vets were the first.
That's where it came from.
Yep.
That's what it was saying, yeah. 1947.
And I know it was invented by the Reich, the Third Reich during the war, because they were so starved for morphine, as far as I know.
That's what. Yep. That's right.
And it's because it's synthetic. That's where I think it has like the half life that's so long, where you can just go and dose and get it, every 24 hours or whatever.
Right.
But leading up to it, I thought it was a great idea.
Going into a program, you mean?
Yeah.
You thought it was a great idea?
Yeah, it seemed like the right thing to do because of how, like, my bones were aching.
So were you, at that time, did you still have prescriptions, or were you using on your own at that point?
No, like, they pretty much cut everybody off of everything. Like, it was pretty much just kind of like, now you're on your own, which brings up a really good topic of how that is just something that I think is horrible to just. I know plenty of people, and it's happened to me before, where like a doctor retires, and then you get a new doctor, and he's like, "Okay, I don't agree with this. I'm cutting you off everything,"
Yep.
and then, you're left with the withdrawal.
It seems to happen too much with the opioids. I mean, I feel like it's because people are not dying from opioid withdrawal, so it's treated differently than stuff that people can actually die from.
Like alcohol,
Like, they
and
will
benzos.
pull it right out from under you and just withdrawal, too bad. I can't believe it's like that. Like, there's gotta be a way to make a change, because people are suffering really bad when that goes on.
It's to the point now where I think it's at epidemic levels in this country. In my opinion, it's like biological warfare with this fentanyl crisis. It's just about everywhere. It's in everything.
Right.
And
Right. Just recently, there was a spike level for the overdoses in Wisconsin. So
by like
it's-
50%.
and it's because of the fentanyl getting in everything. So,
Yep. I really hope that, I heard this rumor. You always hear rumors and everything, but some kids in California who weren't even like 18 were smoking a vape cart, a THC vape cart, and they all died because it had fentanyl in it. And now,
that's not in the cart.
yeah. And it seems to be in everything. Like I said, in my opinion, it's biological warfare at this point.
Well, what's crazy is, have you seen the videos of people who have zero tolerance to opioids when they get exposed to fentanyl? I mean, they just like fall out so quick.
That's
It's really crazy.
there's that video of that police officer.
Yep, I've seen that one too.
Yep.
Yep.
It's to the point now where it's like mandatory, I believe, for like every officer and every, people have to have Narcan on standby.
Yeah, but they need to bring it with them. Like, you got to get out the car, but you have to have it with you. Like the cop that came here when my neighbor was laying down here passing away, he ran up to the house and he didn't have his Narcan on him. He had to run back across the street to the car to get the Narcan, then run back to the house again. Like, why wouldn't you grab that right away when you're running up to a house where someone's laying in the front yard,
Who didn't grab it?
The police officer. He had it in his car. And he ran up to the house. You could see the person laying in the yard. We were in the front yard. And then he ran up and he was like, "Oh, I should get my Narcan." So he ran back and then came back again. And all those seconds matter.
5 seconds can mean life or death. Yeah.
Right.
That doesn't surprise me because just the lack of education, and I don't know how young the officer was or.
Probably late 20s, it looked like.
Okay. Well, he's probably, a rookie. I don't know, because that should be standard issue at this point.
I think it happens more often than you might think, because when my girlfriend was doing CPR on someone when the cops showed up, this person was overdosing. The cop didn't have Narcan even on him in the car.
Yeah. That's
I mean, I'm a person who advocates and says everybody who can carry it should. Even if you aren't using, you don't even like drugs, if you can carry Narcan with you, the spray, the nasal spray,
Yep.
just have one with you in your purse or somewhere, like if you have a bag or anything. Not something you can leave in a car or something that's going to get ruined. It still has to be room temperature and things. But I've talked to different nurses who say they carry it and they've actually saved lives, like going through an airport with it. Someone falls out. They've saved a life in an airport. Me and you ran into somebody on the road. They possibly were falling out. We don't know for sure.
That was a kid too.
So
I won't ever forget that.
there's so many situations now, and that nasal spray, that it's not spray, it's like a gel. It's so easy to use. You just put it and press, and that's all you have to do. It's not a needle. It's not hard. You don't have to be scared of it.
No, you just. I mean, I've luckily never been Narcan, but
Right, I haven't either.
It's pretty. It's pretty self-explanatory how
Right.
it is.
It's
you
very easy.
stick it in someone's nasal, like cavity, and then you just. Psh.
It's just like a nasal spray. It's
And
the same concept.
As far as I know, it was prior to that. It used to be way different.
It was an
like
injection.
Yes.
Yeah, you had to have a needle and draw it out with a syringe and everything.
And the time is everything when somebody's overdosing. That's why what I did like is the clinics is they handed them out, and that's why I have it so much now. It's, is
Yeah, this one here where I go, she gave me 2 boxes, and she was like, make sure that you have one, your friends, make sure people around you have them, because just in case, you never know. Nowadays it's so scary how you just don't know.
last time I checked, it was at like 316 people are overdosing every day in America.
That's crazy. That's big. And was that from opioids, or is that just a general?
I believe it's mainly from fentanyl, as far as I know.
Well, right, because since fentanyl, the overdoses have gone like this, and it's past cocaine and everything else. If you actually look at a chart and see how it is,
It's absolutely astronomical, because they have fentanyl, and then they have that carfentanil,
right?
which like almost a microscopic dot can kill like 3 people. And it's so frightening, and
Yup.
like, just look at, what is that place in Philadelphia? They call it The Walking Dead for a reason.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Are you talking about Kensington, or
Yes,
is that somewhere
Kensington.
else? Yeah.
It looks like people are statues.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that it's one of the most horrific sights I've ever seen.
The videos coming out of there are bad. Like,
And yeah, it's kind of like now on each side of our country we have like our own Skid Row,
yeah.
in LA, and then they have that Kensington. And
So yeah, that's crazy. Do you remember did you use the last week before you went to a program? Like after you call and then you like knew you had to go in on like a Thursday.
yeah,
So how many days? For me, when I called, I had 4 days in between. My first time I went in, I had 4 days in between when I called and the entry morning. And they tell you to come in that morning and withdraw.
yep, yeah, you're supposed to be completely sick.
So for me, when I made that decision and then they say, come in that morning, well, you still, and you're like, well, I still have 4 days. They're like, well,
It's
you have to figure it
4
out.
days,
You
yeah.
have to get through those 4 days and they say, be careful when they hang up the phone. To me, it's a little scary that they do that and just kind of still leave people to their own when they're asking for help, but you do have to get through that. For me, I actually used more during that 4-day period because I was
What your
freaked
addiction's
out
telling you.
about treatment, and I didn't know what to expect or if it was even gonna be worthwhile. I had no idea about treatment. I didn't know anything about programs. It wasn't something that I'd really spent a lot of time learning about. I wish I would have. And now I tell people that if you're using, you should learn about programs because that's where you're going. That's your next step. But no.
That's kind of where we come in, and I hope that this does make a difference. And
Right. Because it's hard. That last week is very challenging, and you got to get through that and then be in withdrawal that morning you go in before you can even continue. And then you're making decisions in withdrawal, all that stuff. So
it's
did
pretty cruel, actually. how
what
they
was
do
your
that.
week like? Did you try to stay sober, or did you use?
Well, after the 3rd day of not having any opioids,
So when you called, you waited 2 days?
I think it was 2 days, I believe. And I remember it was in fall of 2018, and it was a long 2 days. I had to, find it on the street, find it every which way I could. And I remember it now because I think I could only get like just barely enough just to stop, like, the withdrawals, just enough to,
Right.
because all those opiates like Vicodin and stuff like that are so short acting.
Mm-hmm.
You feel horrible. You feel better for like 3 to 5 hours, if that. But it's yeah, it was a long process, and the intake, that's always a blast. I don't think I've ever signed so many I mean, that's a 4 hour process, and you're withdrawing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you remember what you were feeling during that? Like what your emotions and stuff were like anxiety, fears, like what were you feeling during that time, you know?
just pretty much like just wanted to feel better.
This is what I try to tell people. When you go that day and you're in withdrawal, that is the only thing you're going to be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff they say to you is going to be, shoot, just keep going. Okay, yep, okay, yes. Tell me what I need to hear. Sign. Can I dose now?
Yep. And you're not even looking at what you're
I
signing
know,
either. It's
that's
just like, let's get this over with.
Mm-hmm. You will just sign everything. And the other thing is, did they try to talk to you about, like, the difference between the medications that you're going to take at all?
Nothing
Or was
at
it,
all. Nothing at all.
Or did they say, because what they said to me was, what do you want? And then I just said methadone, and they said, okay,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
You're right. I forgot, because it's either that Suboxone or Subutex, and it's like, I remember I didn't really know much about any of it, so
Right.
I just like let them pretty much just tell me what to do, put it in their hands. And I believe after signing what seemed to be like 1,000 signatures, and I'm not exaggerating.
No, it's a lot of paperwork.
It's like, it's a 4 hour process, and then you're sitting there in the intake, like sweating, like, this is going in one ear and out the other.
Right, because you have to see the doctor, a nurse, counselors.
Yep.
Even the receptionist, you spend an hour almost with her doing paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much to do that day that you come in. I just think that last week, if you're going in, take that last week to at least try to learn about what's coming. Don't go in blindly and withdraw that last day. Like, don't do that, because you will make mistakes. And I don't think everybody should start on methadone.
No.
It's too strong for most people. And there needs to be an education when you go in there. You just named 3 things, right?
Yeah.
Methadone, Suboxone, Subutex.
Subutex.
They don't even give you the differences in between them or really anything. That
Or
should be mandatory. Right, but do they offer that at the clinic?
The one that we started at, they didn't, as far as I know. But I know they do that. But I don't think anybody.
I know people that go to the doctor to get it, but not at the clinic.
But I do know they offer it at the one clinic. At least they did when I was there.
Because that's just a once-a-month shot, right?
Yep. And that is not an opiate.
Just blocks.
That, and it also blocks alcohol, too.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Naloxone.
I had a friend that actually was on that, and he had gone through alcohol recovery, and he had a small issue with opioids at the time, so that makes sense that he chose to go on that then.
I stand by it. I tried it quite a long time ago. If you'd seen the needle that they put in your muscle, it's like, well, the needle's about that big.
Well, yeah, if it's got a release for 30 days or...
And the goo is in like a thing like that. And all I could say is I just don't think that could be good for your liver. I do like the fact that it, the mental part of addiction, it's like when you're, a lot of people have been to jail or whatever. Yeah. You don't, when your body and brain knows you can't have it, you don't seem to crave as much. And just the fact that you can't get high off of opiates or alcohol on it, it really does help. I was actually pretty amazed with it, but it really did. It gave me like stomach problems, and I had a lot of side effects from it.
Right.
But
for me, go ahead.
It's not a bad, you know what I mean? I think it's anytime you're not hitting those opiate receptors, and that's what's most important.
Right. For me, I was like, it's weird now too because I'm on testosterone, which is a 7-day shot. I do once every 7 days. That is a 30-day shot. Like,
Yeah.
being someone that has used and was an addict and stuff, I am weird about shots that last a long time. Like, you're saying it's this goo and this stuff in your muscle. Like, I don't think I'd be able to take a shot that's a 30-day shot that's like that. I would have a very hard time being comfortable putting that in my body.
It's I was pretty freaked out because I don't like needles, really, you
Right, and
know.
I even struggle with the 7-day testosterone injection that I know is slowly releasing. I don't know why, but it's just something. Long-term injections just they bother me for some reason.
Well, the more you're putting in your body, if with the half-life and everything, the more your liver has to absorb it and process it. I think I was on it for like 4 months at one time, and I do remember one time as she put it in my muscle, she hit a nerve. So like it hurt for like 2 or 3 months.
Man,
Yeah, so that's
well,
I haven't really thought about that in a long time, but
right. That's what I mean. Like, it's interesting to actually go back and remember that first week, and then entering. It's all stuff that a lot of people are going through, and it's very challenging. And after being in it for a long time, thinking back to when you're a beginner in it, it's just like, man, I went through all that too, trying to come in and remember and do that stuff and be healthy. But down the road, you see it so different.
yeah. And
If I could
now
know what I know now, I would have entered totally different. So,
and that's where
what were your expectations of the program when you
um
entered?
it was pretty much just leaving it up to trusting doctors again. And I believe, honestly, it did help me,
Right.
especially but then when I started having where it affected my metabolism and everything, and it took about a year, I think, to where that it started I started everything was actually doing I was doing great. I was feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
It was right down the street from my house, so
Right.
it wasn't a problem at all. I had a really good job. I was working a program, going to AA and everything. And I think where a lot of stuff changed was around COVID. If you remember just the chaos of that
Oh, for
alone,
sure.
that's when everything changed. And like, I was getting like $600 a month or a week
Mm-hmm.
of unemployment, all this free time. And then whenever anybody in active addiction in treatment or anything is when you have all that time on your hands, you don't know what to do with yourself.
Right.
Yeah, COVID definitely changed a lot of things.
Like, when I went in, my only expectation, the only thing I wanted to do was just get off of pills. Like, I was so like adamant about that when I went in there. I was like, I just want to get off of pills. Like, whatever else, just don't worry about me. I just want to get off of pills. That's it. Like, I don't want to go to all these groups and counseling and all
No,
this stuff. Like, I just want you to help me get off of this so I can move forward.
yeah, yeah.
Like, but if you don't know what you're getting into, little do you know that years later you're still going to be trying to get through it because it's such a long-term process. Like, what's scary about the opioid epidemic is it's not like other drugs. You don't go to a 90-day program and just come out yourself again.
Not at all.
You're not, where a lot of other things you can do stuff like that and be more normal once after 90 days, 120 days. With this, it's a couple years and you're not even feeling normal yet, and not even necessarily close to feeling normal yet. Because I
No,
don't think you feel normal on methadone. Methadone gets you a relief, but you're still suppressed. Your brain's suppressed. Your thyroid's suppressed. It suppresses other things in your body. So you're not yourself still.
no, those and now actually being off it, it's unbelievable how numb I really was. It didn't matter how much I was weaning down. I was still wasn't myself.
And that's the thing. What you were talking about before we got on here was one thing I definitely wanted to mention was how people will go in and try to keep upping their dose and
Yup.
upping their dose because they think they're going to get some euphoria or some sort of high out of it.
That
you know you
addictive
know
mindset
a lot
that
of people will get to like that high dose and now they're just nodding off, falling asleep, And then you stop there thinking, well, I'm not going to go any higher. But now you're at this really ridiculous dose you don't even need to be at, and you're making it harder for yourself to get off. That's the big thing I want people to see.
Yeah.
What you need to do, you're not going to get all messed up on methadone. So go in, get balanced to that 24-hour level. Don't push it way beyond that just because you think you're going to get some sort of euphoria out of it. You know, get level and then start to taper once you heal. That's how you're going to do the best and not risk pause and not risk all these other things by taking such high levels of methadone for a long time.
Very high levels. Like, my max dose was at 160, and some of these people, I met one person that was on 365 or 370 milligrams, and I'm like,
there seems to be no limit in Wisconsin how high you can go.
No.
I've heard other states have some limits.
Actually, I knew a guy that said he was on 400 milligrams, and that just seemed that
was
could
he
kill.
A big guy?
No, he's not. I don't know how the whole peak and trough thing works, but
you've had issues with yours.
Yeah, and that's what I came to find out is I found out that this whole time that, like, you know, whenever I did that peak and trough, it was way in the red. Like, but nobody told me that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think they have so much going on there.
Yeah, but they should still be filling you in on what's going on. Like
100%.
It sounds like they're not reading the test properly.
No, and it's, you know, I know you have to get your blood taken, then, like, you have to rush. It has to be exactly, like, 3 or 4 hours after.
Right, yep.
Is from what I remember. And, like, if you don't get it at that exact same time, like, it's all messed up. It just seems like such an old system. The whole program does. Like, it
really does, actually.
It seems like, you know, when it was started in the 70s, it hasn't changed now.
The only thing different is there's computers to dose it.
You know, yeah, that's right.
It, though. Back then, they weren't checking in on their phones, but...
No.
Like we are.
Oh, yeah. The digital age.
You know, the clinic up here took years to get that far. We're just able to do that this year.
I'm sure in the coming years it'll be robot nurses, you know.
I've heard that I heard in Chicago they have that where you just go up and it's a whole robotic thing. You don't ever see a real nurse.
It's not surprising.
To me, it's just weird. But a part of down there though, it's dangerous for them too.
Oh, it's Chicago,
the
you said?
and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they've done something like that. But you know, when it starts somewhere, other places start to copy that model, and it won't be long before all of a sudden everybody's doing that sort of thing.
Oh, you know, I read a thing, and this was actually a while ago, a couple of years back, is they have, even in the jails, they have vending machines for methadone.
Really?
Yes, like vending machines.
I've seen the Narcan, but not for methadone.
Yeah, like, you know,
you have
obviously...
to have, like, a script where you go and scan it, and then it...
Yep. They have... It's the monopoly of, you know, the whole thing is...
So do you remember when you, like, those first few moments when you're, like, in there, going into the clinic and the program? Like, I remember how surreal I felt actually being in a program like that day that you're actually there.
Like the very first day?
Because you don't expect your life. I never expected to end. I always thought I had enough control where I would figure it out. And then there's the day where it comes where you know it in your head. And then there's the day where you're standing there. The day you're standing there for me was like one of the most surreal experiences of my life because I never expected to actually be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actually being in there, talking to these people, knowing that I'm about to go on a medicated program, it was just such a different experience.
You don't realize how it's a huge part of your life. You can't, I mean, even if you do want to go on vacation, you gotta, what is it, like 2 weeks ahead of time, you know, to guest dose. And
I remember I was going to a wedding while I was still in active addiction, and I remember having to get enough for the whole week to go out of town, and then when you're out of town you're just hoping you don't get pulled over, nobody messes with you, and you don't
Right.
get caught with anything.
I
It's
know
such a
exactly what you mean.
disaster, you just can't live very well in active addiction. And even in a program, then you have to deal with the guest dosing and all that drama.
Well, even when you phase up and you got all those bottles and everything, you got to worry about, say you got kids getting into it, you got to worry about anything. Like, this is my whole thing is a whole bunch of addicts at different points in their recovery should not be together. Addicts are going to always find other addicts, but when they're actually thrown together, even for like 20 minutes just waiting in line, something bad is going to happen.
and
I don't care what anybody says.
it does. People's mouths just can't stop.
No, it's actually the negative repetition of, that there's people at different levels. There's people that really do want to get better.
Yeah.
Then they have like a horrible day or something bad happens. There's that person there to just bring them down to their
For
level.
sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of negative energy.
So we were just discussing how surreal it was, entering. Do you remember how the staff was towards you? Because I remember, like, one of the nurses was kind of ornery, but the counselor was really nice, but they don't educate you about anything there,
No.
What was your treatment like when you walked in there? Did they treat you good, or did they? Because I know they do kind of treat certain people differently too, depending on how you act and stuff too. Like,
remember we were at that really small clinic.
yep, I remember it.
And
It was like that place ran different. That's for sure.
I actually liked it because it was just small and quiet and.
Well, just take all the software out, and that's what it was. Just an old school clinic. Like,
I think it felt like the place was so old, like the walls are gonna cave in on us one day,
Well, it's demolished now. They built something else over it. One thing that's hard to adjust to when you go from an old place like that, and I know there's other people that are gonna have to go through that are in old clinics right now that will end up in newer clinics.
Oh yeah.
There's where they don't have cameras like in the bathrooms and things, and then you get to these newer clinics and they do. And that's a whole adjustment too when you're not used to a camera being in the bathroom and now all of a sudden there is,
I don't mean to laugh, but I remember
No,
you
dude,
had a serious problem with that.
It's crazy, man, when it goes from no camera for like almost 2 years, and then all of a sudden you have to have a camera. Like, it's just weird. I always felt like it was weird because it was a trust thing at the first clinic. If they trusted you, then they never
totally
bothered
did.
you about it.
They just didn't
Because they
want
would
to hear
do
running water.
observed. Like, I had an observed one down there one time.
Did you? I
But-
bet you that was a nightmare for you.
It was kind of, but when you come up here, after that closed, it feels like everybody's just treated the same. Like, you're all a problem, so we're gonna watch all of you, and it's just how it is. That's how I take things, and it's partially my own fault for looking at it from a different, probably not the best perspective either.
Well, you just definitely, if that is a problem, and it's because you haven't been in positions like that before.
Right, like, I'm good now. I'm good.
Right,
with it
but it
now,
took you a while.
But it took me a couple months to actually get adjusted and get used to different people being in there and watching you and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been in so many positions where it's not, you know what I mean?
And
where,
it seems like quite a few people have, but even when I was younger and I was on probation, I didn't ever have observed UAs or nothing like that. So I haven't been exposed to that type of situation until being in a program.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of compare it, I guess, to being on a form of like probation where you have to be there every day. You have to do certain things. You're under the thumb of a program.
Right.
And, that is a good thing for any addict or alcoholic because...
There's some structure there.
Exactly. And then if they've done studies, and I've learned for myself, I thrive whenever I'm in a structured program and I'm told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's been
It's crazy you know that too. Like you've been in those situations enough to know that you do good in that type of situation.
Oh, not only it's not only me. It's like I said, they did a huge study on it. When it comes to addiction, I think we're all lacking something, whether emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Right, I agree because I would say went through addiction because I was lacking the capability to deal with my emotions properly.
And that's 90% of the time. I'd say that's what it is we don't want to feel something.
I can pinpoint exactly why and how and what everything, why it all happened now. I can look back and I know what happened and why I was there. So
Well,
it's hard to admit, but I know.
it's that the hardest thing with addiction is fighting it's that inner psyche, that place that we don't want to think about, where a lot of it has, in my opinion, addiction is like maybe even like 80-20. Like 80% you fear the withdrawal, or I mean 20%, sorry, you fear the withdrawal. But if you really think deep about it, it's the mental anguish that you have to really feel what's going on upstairs,
Right.
that you want to numb all of that.
Right, and that's where the thought of being away from programs and away completely sober is scary for a lot of people, not having that anything at all, because again, the suppression in a program is very strong in a medicated program.
Yeah.
So coming off of it, you still are coming off of an opioid, and that is a strong drug, and methadone's a strong drug, so your body still has to adjust, and that can be a very hard time.
I'm still adjusting after.
So when you had your first intake at the smaller clinic down here, did they tell you that you would have a year of depression when you left after you were done? Because that's what they told me. That's how they told me about pause. They never told me about
tell
pause.
you about that?
But no, they didn't tell me about pause. They just said when you leave here, you'll have a year of depression. That's the type of symptoms that people typically have after a program.
Well,
that's all that they told me.
That's a really simple way to put it, but
Right.
That's all they said though.
Right.
Just a little bit of depression. Okay.
Yep, a year of depression. And it wasn't even that. It was a year of depression-like symptoms. That's what they said.
Symptoms, plural, huh?
I can remember sitting there in the chair and her saying it. Depression-like symptom. Pause is way more extreme than a depression-like symptom.
And I don't even know where to start. That's actually aggravating that they make it sound so simple. Because at least the way I see it is our dopamine receptors are not normal.
Right.
And our dopamine has so much to do with more than just feeling good. It actually, I know Parkinson's disease has everything to do with dopamine. It serves so much more than just like the feel good, just the motivation. Like when you complete a humongous task, when you're on a job site, when you just finish it, that's what dopamine is.
Right.
Not serotonin, where that's like a totally different part of your brain. I don't know why that just aggravates me that they just say that you're just going to have depression-like symptoms
They
afterwards.
didn't even say that to you?
And not that I remember. I don't think they said anything. It seems to me like the process of getting off it is like something you're just on your own.
After you leave, you mean?
Well, even during.
Because, during well, yeah, I guess even during MSW, it is, you are allowed on your own.
They're not going to tell you to come off it unless you really screw up or something.
Well, yeah, you can get kicked off of it.
Yeah.
Which is another whole ordeal in itself, what they do to people on that. But I'm not
give you like 2 weeks or whatever.
I'm not going to get into that. You don't remember, do you remember all of intake? Like getting there, going through and meeting the nurse, and then she takes you back and you get a TB.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that now.
And then you have to go see the counselor, and then they say, well, once you see the doctor, and they know the doctor is going to be far off still. That's why they keep saying, once you see the doctor, then you can dose. Once you see the doctor, then you can dose.
You get there, and the doctor's not even there yet.
Right. You're there a couple hours before the doctor even.
Yep, 4 hours, I think.
And then it's, you see the counselor, and then after you do all the paperwork and they tell you all the different stuff, then you finally see the doctor and she does her assessment on your starting dose, what she thinks you should start at.
And it's usually 20 to 30 milligrams.
Right.
At least I remember mine was like 20 milligrams, I think.
My understanding is 30 is the highest that a doctor can actually start you at on methadone.
Yeah, and I remember it actually really well. For the first week, I felt pretty...
Right. And maybe that's part of the struggle with people is the first day or two. For me, it was the first 2 days on it. I did have a little bit of euphoria and I did feel good. But after that, it was not at all.
No, exactly.
So people trying to chase that, like, because they think they're actually going to get the euphoria forever from it. Maybe that's what's going on. But I've tried to tell people already myself that I've seen go there, don't do it because you won't. And then when I hear the dose that they're on, I'm like, you did.
Oh,
You
yeah.
still tried to chase it even after I've told you that you're not gonna, and now you see on a high dose and you're still not. You know? And now you're jammed up on a high dose.
It took me 4 years to come down off of 160 milligrams. I can only
Really?
imagine. No. I mean, that was my max dose.
Okay.
But prior to that, it was like a little over about a year.
Right.
But there was so much going on with it and so much going on in my life that it was just, getting up so early and, just...
Like, I remember my starting dose was at 30, but she said I looked pretty bad when I came in there. Like, I was pretty skinny and, like, I was definitely... Because I was throwing up every day. That was when my stomach erosion started. So I was in the worst vomiting. I couldn't eat anything at all. It was just puke, puke, puke. Try to get relief. Puke, get relief. Puke. It just, dude, a mess, man. But do you remember how long it took you to get balanced?
I think a couple weeks, actually.
That's it? That's pretty good.
Yeah. Give or take.
Took me like a month and a half or so.
Really? See, and that just shows how everybody's so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, just like you, I was so sick of constantly, like, when you have 4 or 5 different prescriptions and you're running out within like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bad, situation to be in. And then having to find extra medication on top of that.
Yep.
I was pretty exhausted with the whole chasing process.
That's where I always felt, a little bit different than a lot of other people. And I always had enough to where I didn't have to do that very much. But I do remember when I did have to go chase it around, like, that is not fun. People just give you the runaround. You'll never get what you're supposed to get. You always get charged way too much.
They always have
it just drains you, and that's
why
why
these are my last
sometimes when I'm sitting at the clinic and it's taken like a half an hour, I'll be sitting there and I'll just be like, how many hours did I sit in a parking lot just listening to somebody like 15 minutes, 7 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and every time you got to add at least times 6 to whatever they say because they're not going to be there.
Show up.
Right. So it's like, it's not, once you get that far, you need to get in a program and get yourself balanced and start working out of it. Don't just continue the addiction because it's not going to get you anywhere.
I think that out of all the, this is like the 4th or 5th time I've been on here now. I don't think there's more important thing to do is the higher the climb, it's the harder the fall.
Exactly.
And it's such a long process. An agonizingly slow process to get off it.
It is very slow. Years even, like.
Yeah.
It is, man. And to heal your brain, people cannot even wrap their heads around how messed up your brain gets from using opioids for more than what they're prescribed in the short term. If they're prescribed long term, then you still have an issue possibly. They're only, I think, should be used for short term pain relief.
Unfortunately, what I've noticed, with my mother, what she's going through right now and everything with cancer is they have come a long way. Because I don't know if you remember in high school, when we were in high school, I remember getting, a simple filling or a root canal, and they'd give you 60 or 90 Vicodin with a refill.
I was prescribed Vicodin enough in my teen years. See, I never got addicted to it in my teen years, though. I always just took it how you should and just...
Right.
I knew what it could do, but I never overtook it. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that it started to become a problem with my emotional struggles.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, because I had a tiny little pain in my rib. It was like a little cartilage injury, and they prescribed me Vicodin for it. And I was like, really? Like, never would expect, pain pills for such a small injury. And this was already, that was 12 years ago that happened.
Right.
So it's been a while since things like that. But no, I remember they would definitely prescribe things a lot looser.
The way I noticed it was, it seemed like at one point Vicodin was like the new Tylenol.
Kind of. It's like they were kind of trying to make it that way, but
yeah,
it's just even that is too addictive, though.
That's what started my, and it only took like 2 weeks.
And Vicodin are not very strong when you look at, like, opioids as a whole compared to, like, an oxy or heroin or fentanyl. Vicodin's, like, down here, and
yeah.
it's still incredibly addictive.
And in my opinion, like, they're all opioids, but our brain chemistry is always so different that, some people would laugh. I enjoyed Tramadol more than Vicodin and stuff like that, and I thought it lasted longer. And there's some people that are like, dude, that stuff is like Tylenol,
Right.
and in my opinion, it was even better, so...
Right. When I went, after I had pause and I went to see a doctor the first time, he gave me some antipsychotics with Tramadol. This was a solution to dealing with my withdrawal and what I was going through. And dude, I was loopy, so loopy, dude. I went to work, I put in the wrong work number.
Dude.
Like, the lady comes over, she's like, you're working under someone else right now. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is my number. Dude, I was so loopy after they mixed those two pills. And I was like, I can't take it like this. Like, I'm not going to be able to function normally, Like, you don't realize some of these weaker things, when they're mixed, they really create...
Well, Tramadol is actually a very, very dangerous one because it's very synthetic. It gives a lot of people you run the high risk of seizures, serotonin syndrome, and actually it gave some of the worst withdrawals I've ever had with opiates.
That's crazy. You wouldn't think that Tramadol would be like that.
No, and that's where yes, I do blame a lot of these doctors for the crisis that we have today, but a lot of them, we only know what we're taught.
Right.
And they're not taught about how something properly, it's just such a more deeper issue.
Right.
But yeah, so they gave you Tramadol and antipsychotic. Do you remember which? Probably like Seroquel or...
It's been a few years now since... No, it wasn't that. I can't remember. I'm not even going to try to guess.
Right, because, I mean, those are heavy duty, too.
I couldn't take them very long either. It was just messing me up, man. Like, I couldn't do it. I stopped taking the stuff I was prescribed for pause. Because you figure if you're going to
you were on Ativan, too. You told me, weren't you?
That's what actually worked the best for the first 2 months. It was when I stopped taking that all the symptoms really ramped up. But I didn't have a prescription for it, though.
Oh, okay.
I was always, and even the doctor said, when you leave a program, they will prescribe you that for the first week for your withdrawal. So, I mean, I got it on my own, but I got it for the first 2 months, and I took it for like almost 2 months after I left the program, which I felt pretty normal. But then when I stopped is
your nerves
when
were on
things
vacation.
really went bad, and then I went to see a doctor, and they were trying different things. And for me, if you're just going to keep trying different pills and have me all loopy and messed up anyways, I might as well just go back, do it the right way, and just heal slowly and come down off of it slowly. Not try all this other stuff and mess my body up with side effects and everything else, because some side effects aren't good either, man. Some of, like, dry mouth and things like that,
The
I can't stand having those type of side effects where you just, no matter how much you drink, your mouth is just dry.
Yep.
It's horrible. It's not a fun way to live at all.
No, it's actually torture.
It is kind of, and it's all because of one little thing that's just messing you up. So, but you said that the clinic gave you structure. Are you saying like because
Anytime
of
I
groups and
was
counseling, or was it
anytime see I've been in, you know,
because where was it the hours? Because you had to be there early.
yeah.
Are you saying so you started your day early and then you would,
Well,
you
I was
know,
saying because like being in a structured environment in any way, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, anything like that, that's what we as addicts we need. Because when you tried to do it alone without any help, how did it work out?
didn't?
But you thought you could.
There were times when I actually tried to wean down off of oxys and stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
I made it a couple days a few times, but eventually you're just like, this isn't working either.
No, you can. It's actually horrible with addiction. You're your own worst enemy.
It's because it takes longer than the week or 2 days that you can do it. You know, so say you
Instant
have a week
gratification.
worth of stuff. You can wean yourself, but you're gonna have to be on a small dose for the week, and then the same dose for a couple more weeks before you can go down again. How many people are willing to go keep chasing it and chasing it and chasing it to try to wean the proper way? You're not doing it proper on your own.
You know, for me, I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired,
Right.
and I
Well, and
had
lying, hiding from people. Like, I always had to hide it from who I was dating, like stuff like that.
yeah, oh yeah, you know, and because it's almost like you tell them you have to go to this place every day, and they're like, why? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to hear what we've all heard so many times. Just why don't you just quit? Because
Right.
I think all of us, I don't, every addict has heard it, at least after so many years of being in addiction. You want to actually punch whoever says that right in the face.
If you could just quit, many people would. It would be a whole different ballgame if you could just quit.
Yep. Just,
I
yeah,
mean,
or this one had several people say this one. Well, you know, I quit smoking, or I quit, uh, you know, I went on a diet or whatever. And it's like,
mm,
you know, well,
I wish people could realize how messed up your body gets on opioids.
it's actually with the American Medical Association addiction, and you could look it up. It's considered a disease. There's no other way to put it.
Mm,
But yet, for having the like, you know, even having a prescription, like say you have like a couple extra pills, but they're not in the bottle, you can be charged with
yeah,
felonies.
yeah, for sure.
You know, and that follows you for the rest of your life.
One of my roommates, I was living with a girl in 2012 I lived with her for like 2 months, but she got it for having open pills in her.
Operate motor
Yeah,
vehicle.
operating,
Yep.
yeah. She got it because they said she had it in her system and there was open ones in her purse. So they actually gave her a while intoxicated. Like she got like kind of in a bad situation over it. You know, she had, priors, but
That one
still
really hit her hard, right?
just the open pills laying in the bottom of her purse got her in quite a bit of trouble.
It's kind of strange that they like. How many times have you been to Walgreens or to get a prescription? There's like
when I
ten
was
thousand pills, you know, and they're running around like crazy.
What's really interesting, when I was a CNA, I used to be able to pick up
Yes,
prescriptions for people, even opioids. I used to pick up one person's opioid prescription from there, and I couldn't believe that they would let me get it for them.
it, I'm really glad you brought that up because you know when you work in a nursing home, you realize is how they're on some pretty heavy duty medications. And this actually brings up like something that it really just kind of got to me when taking care of hospice patients and
Mm,
everything. They get to the point where they can't even talk. What if they're going through withdrawal, or they're not getting enough of their medication, or they're getting too
yeah.
much? That's what
That's a tough thing working there, and people aren't able to fully tell you what they need or the pain they have. You know, it's hard for sure to watch it.
And yeah, it was one of the most eye-opening experiences, you know.
So did you? I mean, with that being said, did you have support before you came to the clinic, or when you came to the clinic, did you connect with people and find any support, or did you get support from like professionals at the clinic, or?
You know, just looking back, the way, at least the person that I am, I'm very hard-headed, stubborn, and I'm really set in my ways, which I think a lot of addicts are.
Right.
That's the hardest part, actually. Personally, I just couldn't stand the energy of being around so many addicts, you know?
It is tough some days.
Yeah.
But there's
And
also a lot of negative energy around that
a
too.
lot.
People are not, a lot of them are not trying to do anything better.
No, and you know, looking back, you know, a lot of them, I, at least at this point in my time in my life, I know when I'm talking to somebody and I know when I'm talking to their addiction,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and I don't even take things personally,
That's so true. Yes. That's
you
very
know,
true.
because as an addict, you know,
When you're around it enough like that, you can really start to see the difference when you talk to people.
you know, and I've noticed that a lot of addicts are some of the best people ever who have just been through something that, you know, they didn't have the proper support.
I mean, I actually had a conversation with someone earlier that was discussing how he couldn't believe the darkness of the times he was in addiction compared to who he is now.
Yeah.
Because he feels like a much better person, and people, his friends, look at him differently, and not everybody knows about that. And it's something that even he can't even really think about on his own because he looks at it as such a dark thing.
You know, like I said, when it comes to addiction, we're kind of our own worst enemy. That's where the support does come in, where
For
it's
sure.
so important to have like genuine, real friendships, not the
Yeah,
acquaintances that you just share an addiction with.
right.
You know,
And you
like,
actually have quite a few of those. Like when you're at a clinic and stuff, there's a lot of people that you might say hey to or talk to for 2 minutes, but you're not hanging out with them at your house. You probably don't have their phone number, you
no.
know, things like that.
And that's where it's hard enough trusting people nowadays, even just not being an addict. In that world, it's pretty much dog eat dog.
Yeah.
You know, it's just survival of the fittest.
Well, a lot of people are trying to get something out of you too, though. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always like be friends. It's be friends for what you can do for me today kind of thing too.
Yeah, and you know, I've done it.
What bothers me is if you don't, they act like you're a bad person. If
Oh,
you
the guilt
like if
tripping and
yeah, if you
the
can't do something or you're just not available or something, then you're the bad person because you can't, you know. Try to put you down. I
that
don't
you
know
know,
how that gets you what you want by putting someone down, but it seems to be the way people go with it, you know.
you know, and it took years to, you know, we always think that, you know, everybody is talking about us or whatever, but it's like there's what 7.8 billion people in this world. It's like I'm pretty sure they're not like sitting around constantly thinking and talking about me.
Some might be,
Well,
but
yeah,
most no. You know, like
no, I know what you mean.
I know
Yeah,
there's some people that are just always gossiping about others. That's all they have to do with their day.
yep.
They live for that, man. Like, ugh.
It's contagious. It's negative.
But
It's
that's a lot of small
horrible.
town life.
Yeah,
When you're in these small towns and not a lot going on, it's easy to get caught up in silly gossip and just
it's actually
stupidness.
funny. And to top it off, there's 12 Justin Johnsons in Eau Claire County.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty funny. And there was, you know, back in high school, there was 3 in the same grade as me. You
that's
know,
crazy.
it's so, you know, it's I guess just another thing where I just think it's funny.
Right. Do you remember during the program, like your difficult times that you had? Like I can remember some that definitely stand out. Like my arguing with the administrators. And
Yes.
they were switching me through counselors so much. I would just like I'd get super upset. Like I mean, I literally have had. I'm on my 15th counselor, I think, right now since in my 5 years in being in a program.
Yeah.
So that's ridiculous.
You know, you were the one who actually showed me that you could fight back, and like if something wasn't right, like you know, I'm gonna go over my counselor's head, and you could see the backlash that you get.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I've gone over people's heads a couple times, and I've gotten some heavy backlash, dude. Like,
Right.
but the point is, if you don't, you're just gonna be the one getting pushed around. I would rather get backlash for speaking up than get pushed around and be quiet.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't even know you could. That there was even an opioid authority. It's down in Madison, and you know,
There are ways that you can actually, take steps.
it's
to
funny they
protect
don't tell you
yourself.
about that either.
Well, why would they? They don't want you to know you have rights. And I know there's more rights that we don't even know about yet that we're still going to learn about.
Oh, and
I
that
know
goes
for
with
sure.
many, many, many things. Like,
Right.
when you get pulled over by the police, you don't even need to actually show them your ID. You know how many people don't? But
Yeah,
out of courtesy, why would I?
Well, you're just starting problems.
And but there is people
I know.
that almost, what is that? Almost sovereign citizen, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about the other day, that guy, he goes into all those federal buildings with a camera, and it makes them panic. You know, it's the same kind of thing.
Right. Do you remember if they ever tried to address your physical health after you were in the program, or was it all just mental? Like, is it all just keep
After I got out?
No, when you're in it.
No,
Once you were like with your counselor, because once you get a couple weeks in and you're more comfortable with your counselor and you're a little more comfortable, things go different directions. But I had one counselor that would try to address physical health, but otherwise, out of the other 14, none of them have.
That's no. In fact, when I started at the
because physical health and mental health, I mean, if you're
goes
going
hand
to
in
try to
hand.
do your mental, but you're sitting around eating Doritos and drinking soda every day, you're not going to feel good.
And the sugar cravings that methadone gives
Right.
you.
That's another big thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. I'm still, like, I've lost, like, 25 pounds since just coming off it.
Yeah, you look actually like you lost weight, too.
Yeah, it's, that's a huge thing. It's I've noticed either people lose weight or they gain a lot of weight.
Yeah, I bet if you went back to episode 2 and then this one, I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Guarantee it. That's
Gosh.
crazy, though. That's good, though. That just shows you, though, too, without the sugar cravings. You got to control that, though. It's hard, but
It's funny.
I try hard, too, but that's why I keep them a little bit more expensive gummies around, because then I eat just a little bit less, because they're good, so I still get it, and I just don't eat quite as many. Like,
that definitely are not like, like the gummies we had growing up.
Right.
Those were, I could taste that those were really healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what we share in common, is we're both really into holistic, like vitamins and everything. Like, we're really into it.
Well,
because...
yeah, I try to take stuff for my stomach too, so it's natural stuff, and I see a natural doctor. So far, I've seen over the last 3 years, I've seen one once a year. So, I mean, that's not a lot, but I see other doctors too, but just to see a natural doctor to get different ideas.
Yeah, and we're one of the only states actually that has kratom's illegal. And I know people that's worked wonders for.
Yeah.
Getting off of years of opioids.
I actually took my test from the natural doctor I seen to my regular doctor. And she was reading it, and she was like, wow, they really test for way more than we do here. And I was just thinking, oh, yeah? Like, maybe I should just be going there more,
Oh, yeah.
Because and even when I took the test from my doctor in there, and you compare them, like, the natural, they have, like, 6 more things on the bottom that over here they're not. And, like, my doctor was surprised that they were testing for all that stuff,
Isn't it,
It's just different stuff in your blood that your regular doctor's not looking for and things like.
Well, I know, like, I think the biggest I've ever seen is a 14 panel. And there's even like tricyclic antidepressants on there. I don't know why, but I don't know if those are like they make you feel euphoric in any way, but
Right.
that's a lot of, 14 different things to
Right.
see if you got in your system.
For sure. It is crazy. So I can remember being in the program and starting to really understand like why my life went that way. Like after I was balanced and, reflecting and starting to come off, more of the downside of it. Like, did you ever have a moment like that where you can like you really make sense of why everything happened the way it did and why you ended up, in a program? And 'cause
Uh,
you're in the military. You started on a really good path and then you were prescribed something and it took you on another path.
yeah.
So for
And
me, I've been able to understand kind of why I hurt my stomach and why it happened and how it all kind of unfolded.
you know, I always just try to look at things the most positive way, no
Mm.
matter how negative it is, because it's actually funny. Because if it wasn't for all those opioids, I would have been a full blown alcoholic.
Yeah, and that
I
might have been worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Imagine if we could have, if like Walgreens or whatever, a pharmacy, you could just buy what you want,
Mm.
like alcohol.
I've thought about that a few times. Like if you're an alcoholic, how you can just go buy it anytime, and you can even get 99-cent ones, big cans.
Yep.
That'll keep you buzzed all afternoon for $1 or $2. And you're not doing that in the drug world. A
No.
$1 or $2's not gonna get you far.
Yeah. You pull up with $1.
Right. People are not coming across town for your dollar.
No. No, especially if they're in active addiction too. It's like, yeah, not happening.
So would you say that that's almost like something that you learned about yourself? Like that when you were by using opioids, it took you away from alcoholism?
Yeah. I don't think that. I know that because I like the feeling that alcohol gave me.
It's almost the same euphoria in a way.
Yeah, but like with the whole alcohol, you drink enough of it, you can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out of your pores.
Yeah.
You don't smell it, but
Right.
everybody else can. And
Mm-hmm.
even dating back, like even when I was like 16, 17, when my friends wanted to quit drinking so early, I would get angry. So looking back, like
Right.
I know for a fact the most positive way to look at it is it saved me from just being, who knows where the alcohol would have put me, because I've seen alcohol destroy a lot of people
Yeah,
in
it's
my
scary.
family alone.
Like comparing alcoholism to opioid addiction, those are both scary, but neither one of them seems to be the worst really either, though, in a way. They're both super dangerous,
I
but
think at one time alcohol was, but I don't think, when you drink every time, you're not going to run the risk of overdosing like today with this frickin' fentanyl.
right. But scary about alcohol is the DUIs and a lot of the driving people do after they get so used to it.
In this state, it's if this like I know in Michigan, your second one, it's there's no talking your way, plea bargaining out of it. Is you're 2 years in prison.
I mean, it should be harsher penalties for DUIs.
Well, you just got to look at it is how would if that was your family member that got hit by
Mhm.
a drunk
Yeah,
asshole,
for sure.
that just couldn't, who was, I think actually you can be picked up for, like, you can get a ride for free if you're smashed.
Yeah, there is
It's
free
actually to the
rides
point now
that
where it's the bartender is liable for, like,
yeah.
you can't, a
If they
bartender
overserve.
cannot just, yes, exactly.
If they can prove you were over-serving.
Yup.
Yeah.
There's liabilities now with things like that, but still, if there's a state to be an alcoholic, this is probably the worst.
Yeah.
We can buy beer till midnight on a Sunday.
Yep.
You can't even in Minnesota.
Yeah, you have to prepare more in other states. Here, you can just, whenever you want to get it, it's there.
Like,
oh.
down in Missouri, where I have family, and they have alcohol drive-throughs.
Ohio does too.
Okay, see, I'm really surprised that Wisconsin hasn't,
I
like,
know. It's probably because of the cold weather up here, though.
well,
The
it's
winters
pretty
are
cold in
pretty
Ohio
brutal.
too, though. You get to that northern Ohio, aren't you kind of close to the...
I was more in like southeast Ohio.
Oh, okay. It's a totally different ballgame, kind of like Illinois, where the south, the
Yeah.
lower part is totally different from the north. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, that was the first time I ever seen one of them drive-throughs was out there.
Yeah. It's it's one of those things where when
It's
you get
different.
old enough, you got to try it.
It's different, man. Like,
Drive through.
and just saying what you want in the drive-through, like.
Somebody's really at a, you
Right.
got to get that alcohol ASAP. Get through the drive through.
So when you got towards the end, when you were tapering down, what kind of fears did you have when knew you were you're gonna be on your own? Did you have fears and anxieties?
Everything that life...
Had you been told about pause yet at this point?
Well, I had a pretty good feeling about it, actually from you, what you have been through and everything, what you have told me, and, studying it and everything.
I don't think we met yet at that point. We met after we both went back the second time.
No, we met, well, you mean at the first clinic?
At Metro, yeah, but we had both came back. Remember?
Oh, yeah, yep. I forgot, I did try it I think I tried it for like a week or something like that. And, yeah.
'Cause, yeah, you said that you had pause too, so you came back. Because that's why I came back. I had it for 8 months, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, it was only getting worse every day, so...
See, and that brings up another thing is when you're on that program, it's like so much is a blur, like days.
Yeah, because you're suppressed. And
yeah,
it's
actually frightening how fast it seems like from 2018 and now it's already 2023.
Right.
We're halfway through.
I feel the exact same way. It goes by a lot faster because you're not fully... you don't feel everything. You're not fully aware of everything like you would be if you weren't on a medication. But I'm assuming there's a lot of medications out there that would make you feel somewhat like this, where you're a little cloudy, days kind of run together, and it's not, you just don't feel quite like yourself every day.
Just when I was on Effexor, the antidepressant, the withdrawals I was having from that was no different really from like a narcotic, like brain zaps and everything like that. And that is not scheduled. It's not a narcotic. It's not anything.
Mm.
And I just remember, yeah, I would feel really foggy some days. And, anytime you're putting a synthetic chemical and it's going to be hitting like, receptors that it's not supposed to be there in the first place, I think it's just going to cause damage of some kind. But
Right.
People don't realize the brain is just as resilient as our liver. Like, you can regrow everything that we've fried, with all the years of... Like, look at... We are so fortunate. How, like, how I said, you just try to look at the positive. It's not easy to do that. We probably put our brain through more than we thought it could ever handle.
Right.
Just try to put that same energy in trying to healing it with the right, time. When it comes to addiction, time is not... We don't want to wait for anything. We want it now.
Exactly. That's why it's, even in the beginning, you're just signing away because you just want to get relieved.
One of those things could have been, you're a slave for 3 years. You don't know what you're signing.
Exactly. Do you remember if they ever talked about aftercare with you? Because I had a counselor that said that they were trying to put together an aftercare program to keep up with you for 30 days after, but nothing ever came out of it.
No, but I do know people who have completed the program and they still go there like months after they're done with the medication.
To just visit or just to check in? Or
No, like it's an aftercare program.
Okay.
I was never told about it, but I'd heard from other people.
So do you think that like people request like to... I wonder how you'd go about that. Like just request to still have counseling maybe?
Yeah.
where you don't get medicated, and then they charge you something maybe different because you're not taking the medication.
I think,
Because when the one counselor talked to me about it, it was when I was still self-pay before I was having insurance on it, and it was gonna be like $4 less or whatever a month.
well, it's
Not a month, a week.
be.
I mean, it was gonna be $4 less a week.
Really?
Not have medication, yeah. So it would have been like $16 less a month to just go there for counseling.
Yeah.
This was already a couple of years ago though. Like this, I'm sure I haven't heard anything about any aftercare.
The way things are going right now, I've noticed that there's a lot of cutbacks in the entire medical industry. I know that from being a CNA, and
the clinic in Eau Claire actually finally seems to have enough staff. It's felt like they haven't had it forever.
And
finally it seems like they do.
What I thought was strange too is I'm noticing that they're definitely filling these clinics up, but I'm seeing cutbacks, and the urgent care was closed a few weeks ago
That's crazy.
You know how Sacred Heart is connected to the ER, and then they have the urgent care. The urgent care is completely closed down. They don't have enough staff.
Right. See, like when I was getting ready to leave for the first time, I was a little weird about the depression thing that they told me about. But I wasn't thinking that it was going to turn into what it did. I can't even still wrap my head around that they don't talk about pause with you when you start a program and educate you about methadone and Suboxone and what was the other one, Subutex, before you start taking it. Like, is there anything else? Even when I just went and got on testosterone, the doctor talked to me for 20 minutes about testosterone and the side effects and everything about it almost. But when you go to a program like this, they're not going to explain to you what you're taking or your choices.
You're a number.
It just seems messed up. They're setting people up for failure almost, like to be stuck on a medication.
Pretty much. That's, you already know how I feel about it.
Well, and then by letting people go so high too. Like I see people that are smaller than me on doses that are almost double mine, and I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. If you were only, and then one person said that she was only taking, 10 milligram oxys for like a year, and she's on like 180. And I was like, there is no reason for that whatsoever. You should be on maybe 100 at the max,
80 if that.
Like, it seems like they're just willing to prescribe whatever people want to get to. And they just, if you say it, they'll give it to you.
Pretty much. And, in addiction, we become pretty good at manipulating.
But I feel like the nurses and the people that work there should also...
Oh, absolutely.
See it and know when you are manipulating and when you're not. I mean, we can see it in other addicts when we talk to people. Like you said earlier, am I talking to you or the addiction in you?
Yeah. It's actually, and this just seems to be a thing nowadays, when it's not just with addiction. If it doesn't affect the person or their immediate close family, it's out of sight, out of mind. Not my fucking problem.
That's so true. Yeah, that's very true.
And as time is going on, I still see it. It's just so much worse with the phones, too. Like, I've had to, my cousin, we were talking one day. I had to grab the phone out of his hand just so we could have a conversation. When you're looking down so much like that, and that's an addiction in itself, that... it's hitting those dopamine.
Yeah.
I try to actually stay away from my phone. And
the phones definitely distract people.
Car accidents.
Some people, like you said just now, you can't even have a conversation because they can't hear a word you're saying because their head is so in the phone.
Yeah.
It's weird that people would rather stare at social media or something than just talk to who you're hanging out with. Like, if you want to stare at it, go home and stare at it. Like, you know what I mean, though? Like, why are people so quick to want to stare at it when they're out with their friends? Like, you're bored with your friends?
It's actually gotten pretty, it's breaking down communication because, we're at the age now in our 30s where there's a whole generation that grew up with phones. When we were in high school, I remember you were you're a badass if you had that Motorola flip razor. You remember that one?
Yeah, I had it
Yeah.
for like 6 months. I had all the, like, I remember back then though you could upgrade every year. That's why.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
it's every 2 years, but it's not even worth upgrading every year now because of the way things are. But back then it actually was, because technology was changing to something better a little quicker. Now
oh,
it takes a few years before you actually see a big change.
well, like Elon Musk says, we are moving insanely too fast.
For
Like,
sure.
just look at the phones we had, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they are pretty nice now. And the cameras have come a long way too.
yep. Yeah,
Really,
they sure have.
really long way.
The connection seems to be the problem. It's
Right.
like, and that is just seems to be getting worse. And
So how long was your break between when you left and went back?
when
So you left and you had to go back and go through intake and everything again, right?
there was a time where I actually tried the whole program and everything, and I didn't really last that long. Like, I didn't care, but I was on it for like a couple months. And I think I from what I remember, I went, this was like I don't even remember, like 2015, I want to say. And I ended up like going to jail. That's what happened.
That's how you got taken out. So you've actually went back 3 times then?
Well, see, it's hard to even keep track because, we started at the small clinic,
Right.
and then, I had to, when that closed down, it actually tore it down. We went, across town.
But that wasn't, I guess that was an intake, wasn't it?
Yeah, you had to do the
You had
intake
to actually
again.
do the intake even though you were going from clinic to clinic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when I had to go to Onalaska every day, which is a little over an hour away.
But I'm talking about actually leaving the program and coming back. You did that twice, right? Like actually.
Yeah, it was, but it was pretty much, I was trying to get off the opioids at one time. I wasn't taking it seriously or anything. I was feeling the post-acute withdrawal from all the medications that I was prescribed and everything.
Because when I came back, it was July of 2018.
No, it had to have been 2018.
No, I lived in La Crosse. I came back in 2019. It was July 2019.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, time goes fast, man.
Yep, because I remember I lived in La Crosse till the end of 2018. See, I transferred down there once too, and then transferred.
Yeah, I've actually had to go through that intake process like 3 times.
But that's why we are sitting here talking about this, though.
It's hard to even keep track.
We
It's such
know what the process is like. We know what the last week, what the feeling is like when you decide that you have to go to a program, all this anxiety, the fears, the using, then going to a program and actually having to get on a medication, go through all of that, all the things your body goes through, the way you feel, the way people act and them programs and treat you. And I'm on 14, 15 counselors. Like, you're not treated like you're a respectable person in there. And the other thing is,
You feel like you're at least I felt like I was on probation.
like I've said on some of the TikTok clips too, like, even if you do everything right and are a nice person, you are still going to run into some issues there. It doesn't matter.
Guilty by association.
The struggling people are going to get it the worst, but just being there, you are going to run into something. They're going to mess with you over something at some point. Like, you're going to make some mistake or something's going to happen. A lot of people end up going through it. That's what I'm trying to say is, like, just don't do it in the first place, and you won't have to go through a lot of the stuff we're all going through because we didn't know and weren't educated back then. We can educate you now, make a better choice.
Until I have breath in my lungs, I will tell people that it's not worth it.
No.
And if you do it, do not go up so freaking high. Don't.
Well, if you're an addict now, go to treatment.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is don't do it in the first place. Like, listen to the pain and the struggle of what opioid addiction and addiction itself gets you. I understand you need to deal with things and you might be hurting, but there's a positive way. There's support, there's counseling. There's a lot of ways to do it without a substance.
Not even once. There's no amount of money that can ever take back the time that I've lost because of addiction.
Me too. And now, even now, with my extreme energy fatigue, like my extreme fatigue that I have, how much time do I lose now every day? I sleep an awful lot of my life away, and it's partially because being on methadone, it's suppressed my testosterone.
Right. And it's funny because now being off it, I haven't had a good night's sleep it's going on 2 months now.
It's because you're going back into all that stuff where your body is
like, where is the suppression?
Freaking out and doesn't know how to handle anything.
Yeah. I don't wish addiction on my own worst enemy. There's nobody that...
Well, one of the worst things too is knowing that your body is probably never going to be how it was before addiction. You might be able to get close, but you're just not going to be yourself fully again.
I will say, though, I do know that when you feel absolutely agonizingly horrible, that's a really good sign. That's your brain and your body healing itself. Because it's no different from getting your ass beat by, with a bunch of, people with baseball bats. You got to go through a lot of inflammation, a lot of pain for it to heal. When it comes to addiction, it's all up here, and I'd say, at 320 people a day that are overdosing and dying, that's a war going on in our streets, but it seems like very few, if anybody, wants to even care nor talk about it.
That is true.
And now that whole attitude of how people are that are not addicts, that out of sight, out of mind, now it's to the point now where it's in the suburbs that there's there's videos of people on Water Street overdosing, being Narcaned.
Yeah.
You can't escape it. Now they've ignored the fucking problem till it's right at their front door.
It happens too often in life.
You don't even have to be an addict. You know what I mean? If you just touch that shit like that officer.
That's why I'm calling for people to carry it.
Yes.
If you have the means and you're able to, if you carry a purse, a bag, anything that you could carry it in a way where it's not going to get ruined. Yeah. Like, don't put it in a hot car just to have it. Do it the right way, but you might actually save a life if you do it.
Oh, you will for sure. I mean,
not necessarily for sure.
Well, I mean,
at least you're prepared.
You're doing the right thing.
Right, you're doing the right thing, exactly. And you can be there if somebody is falling out in front of you. You don't have to be standing there being like, I wish I would have had that.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that more because that was I remember during the lockdowns and everything, when we were driving back, I believe, from the clinic, wasn't it?
We were on our way back, yep.
That kid who was laying right in the middle of...
He was in the middle of the road.
And his friends...
trying to flag everybody down.
Well, they didn't know what to do, I remember, and by the looks of it, they were 16.
Oh, they were young kids.
They were 17 at the oldest, and I'll never actually forget that day because... I just remember the one kid, that's when I knew, I think I said something, I yelled at the kid, like, call 911 or something, and he's like, sir, I did, or whatever, and that's when I knew, wow, we're getting older now, because I've never been called sir before.
Right.
And I could see that it was just a kid, man. This kid wasn't even out of high school yet.
Just ever since that nurse told me that, she carries it, and she... saved somebody at the airport, and she's glad she carries it. That's what really got me thinking. And it's not that hard to have the little nasal thing. It's like this big, very small. You can fit it. Plastic, you can fit it in almost anything. So if you do anything, it's something that if you can, you should do it. That's all it is. Like, Narcan. If you can't, don't. It's not bad if you can't, because it's okay. But if you can, you definitely should.
Couldn't agree more, man.
Is there anything else that you want to add today?
No, just you brought up a really good point, man. That Narcan, and it's free, as far as I know.
Right. There are some places you can get it for free.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to, just remind everyone that, going into treatment's definitely a scary thing, and you will have to make choices about your future when you go into treatment. The day you enter, you're going to have to make choices. So the best thing to do is, if you have to go, is to try to learn as much as you can ahead of time.
Yep.
Even if you're someone's friend. Like, if you know your friend is going and they're not being responsible, and you care about your friend and you think that they might have a chance to be normal again, maybe do a little research for them, even, so that you could fill them in about it before they go. I'm not saying you have to do it. It's just a thought, something to do if you care about people. If I had a brother or somebody who was going through it, I would probably look up stuff. If someone were to say this, like, give you an idea of what to do to help them get in a program, to help them get through the program.
You can never do enough research.
Right.
I don't care if you've studied it, have a degree in psychology, whatever.
Exactly. You can
Keep
go
studying.
to a clinic even and ask probably for their handbook. I bet you they would give you their handbook so that you would know what to expect. They'd probably even tell you about the intake process if you ask.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a surprise. But unfortunately for many of us, it was, and it still will be. It's crazy.
It's,
But yeah, so
I could agree.
you don't have anything else to add? You're good?
I'm good.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for being here today. It's always good having conversations with you. So thank you for listening. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay humble, stay safe, and make good choices for yourself and those around you.
Always.